Yes, this is because of that tweet. On the 7th of May 2023, Twitter user Bigolus Dickolus put out this tweet alongside a picture of a book cover. Read this. Do not look up anything about it. Just read it. It's only like 200 pages. You can download it on Audible. It's only like 4 hours. Do it right now. I'm very extremely serious. And I thought, fuck it. Why not? And basically within the few months, I would say, since I have put the request in at the library, received the book, read the book, finished it, here reviewing it, that tweet blew right up and then has obviously faded into non-existent. Nobody cares about it now because all anybody is talking about right now is a deranged 30-something with a ukulele talking about gossip trains. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm just here to talk about my silly little books, not the toxic gossip train. The Lord knows, Song of the Summer, it's been stuck in my head ever since I first saw it. So if you saw that tweet, read it yourself, and are now looking to see what other people think of it, or if you are somebody who didn't see that tweet and you are looking for a review, or you saw the tweet and went, look, I will read it, but I still want to see a little bit of opinion first, then hi, hello, and welcome, or welcome back, I suppose. Today we will be looking at This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and, let me get the name right, Amal El-Matar. From literally the first lines of this book, I was immediately hooked. Bear in mind, I had not seen anything except what was on the front cover. When I had the book in my hands, sure, I was tempted to read the blurb, but I didn't because I'm a good boy. And I just dove right in. Mostly to stop myself becoming tempted. I got the book at the library, started reading it that day. So when I talk to you, and I've mentioned this in many books, it's something that I think is so important. When I talk about the ability for an intro to draw you in, an experience like this can really emphasize that, because I wasn't going to get anything but a recommendation on Twitter from somebody who didn't mention anything about it. They just said read it, and I've seen the front cover. My knowledge of this book is there is a red and blue theme and birds. That's all I'd seen, and the bird thing is a motif somewhat, but it's more a reference to something. It's not expect to see birds a lot during this, if you catch my drift. So the intro is going to be something so important for an experience like this. And while you're not generally going to read books like this, if you're an avid library user, sometimes you do just go, ooh, that seems cool, and you have a quick glance at the back. The intro is going to be what brings you in. Or sometimes if you are browsing in bookstores, you may read the first couple of lines, or sometimes I think you can do that on some like ebook type places. You can read the first page or so. So yeah, look to books like this when you want to know how to open your book. When red wins, she stands alone. Blood slicks her hair. She breathes out steam in the last night of this dying world. That was fun, she thinks, but the thought sours at the framing. And that whole first page, in fact the first couple of pages, are as inviting as that. And it's not necessarily inviting as in... Is that the cat, or is that my mother? Hang on. I believe it is my kitchen floor being fixed. Did I shut the door? Yes, I did. So when I say it's inviting, it's not necessarily inviting as in it's something beautiful in a way of like there's a warmth to it, but it's inviting in a way that a book should be. It invites you to read more, understand more, and it's just mwah. I think it's lovely. I just knew from that moment, I knew from that first page that I was going to fall in love with this book, or at least I hoped I would, because sometimes, you know, that first line can be misleading, but, you know, you get that first line and it's like, this is great, it's really inviting, and then you keep reading, you're like, oh, no, shit. But not in this case. It was a this is what to expect type deal. Now, generally speaking, I had no idea how I was going to structure this review after talking about that first line, because I didn't want to go through and do a full Bad Rep Book Club style plot breakdown, because I wanted to avoid spoilers, but I still wanted to touch on pretty much everything I'd written in my notes, barring some. But again, I didn't want to do spoilers, so structuring this was going to be kind of difficult, because generally my reviews are very rambly, but I do try to create structure, but I didn't think it was going to happen here. So I'm basically just going through my notes, and well, I'm not. I've scripted it. When I was doing my script, I went through my notes, tried to compile it together, tried to make it make sense and thread through it. That's what you're getting today. Now, while I am all for a good origin story, I like that here we are just in whatever is going on here. And I think a big part of that is that obviously this book deals with time, and while yes, there would have been a point in time where this war began, I think thematically it just makes a lot more sense to be dumped in it rather than trying to find a beginning for something that temporarily doesn't really make sense to have a beginning, because when you dive into it, it would be a lot of mind fucks trying to find a beginning of a time thing where, yeah, sure, somebody would have made the decision to do that, but they would have already been doing that because timelines and cyclical and nonsense, right? Because it's timelines, it's different versions of timelines and very complicated. The actual time stuff itself is actually not made super complicated. I found it relatively easy to understand. It doesn't make you try and twist your mind around things too much. You have to be focused on it somewhat, but you're not going, oh wait, but then if they, and then, because some time stuff is difficult, it's not focused on in such a way that you have to worry about certain things and you have to overthink everything. It is just, you are in the Time War. That is made pretty clear straight away. You can tell how the opposing sides are structured. Really like that we're just dumped in it. Action, because you don't have to deal with any temporal bullshit of being like, we're at the beginning, but what is a beginning and all that. I think the authors made the correct choice here to not go for a beginning of the Time War. They just went, here you are. And to be fair, making the right choices is a running motif throughout this book. You know, you look at something like the structure, it is very simple and could have been repetitive, and yet they did such a good job in not doing that. These are short chapters broken into 2 parts, or you know, you could say that it's like 1 chapter is actually 2 chapters, but I would say it's 1 chapter 2 parts. So opening of chapter 1, you can see we're with Red. We are following her in a moment of action and time, and then that is followed by Red receiving a letter from Blue. Now, these letters are not, I think there is once, maybe twice, where the letter is somebody's written something down with pen and paper. It's more cryptic than that, and it's interesting to see the ways in which they receive their letters. It's really cool to see how it's like, all that's put together. But anyway, so we see Red in a moment of time and action. She finds a letter from Blue. We read that letter, and then that reverses. So we have Blue in a moment of time or action. She finds a letter from Red. Continue. She then reads that letter. And it swaps. Like I said, seems like something that could get repetitive kind of easily. I was worried about that at first. But my worries were... they had no reason to be there. It clicks nicely together. And there's something comforting in the way that you know how it's going to all function. And I would say it is, generally speaking, within the letters where we get some of the best snippets of writing within the book. There is just something about the way they talk to each other. Sometimes it's just a zippy line, like, and we are starting a little bit later in a sentence here, but I didn't need the whole thing because it context stuff. Knowing your fine attention to detail, I thought I'd put a little devil in it. Just a nice little thing that makes you go, ooh, ooh, I like that. Yeah, it's nice. Or it's something through their, especially Blue's, active flirtation. Oh no, obviously that, like, I'm going to put a little devil in the detail. It's cheeky. It might be seen as flirtation, but more active flirtation. Like, are you trying to recruit me, dear Cochineal? And then we'd be at each other's throats even more. Oh, Petal, you say that like it's a bad thing. And learning the way these two women become entangled with each other and fall in love with each other, there's just something so beautiful about it. And it starts out as stuff like that where it's cheeky, and then you watch it, I mean, with the petal there, but you watch it blossom. And I think it is, generally speaking, within the letters themselves where not only do you see them falling in love with each other, but where I found myself really falling in love with this book. Now, obviously, no book is completely perfect. Now, I can't say I have a huge amount of issues with this book. There were a couple of times where I went, and that's about it. Like, for example, I got used to it as we went through, and it made sense structurally for once, because some books it doesn't, and it just feels like rambling to me. I prefer some kind of chapter marking, but we don't get that here. We just get like the blank head at the top of a page. So no like chapter 1 or like a title or anything like that. It is just where you've got a page and it's like half blank, and then it starts with like the capitals at the beginning. I'm sure there's a proper word for that, where you have the capitals at the beginning of a new chapter, but I don't know them.
Initial. In a written or published work, an initial capital, also referred to as a drop capital or simply an initial cap, initial, init capital, init cap or init, or a drop cap or drop, is a letter at the beginning of a word, a chapter, or a paragraph that is larger than the rest of the text. The word is derived from the Latin initialize, which means standing at the beginning. An initial is often several lines in height, and in older books or manuscripts are known as inhabited initials. Certain important initials, such as the Beatus initial or B of Beatus Via, at the opening of Psalm 1 at the start of a Vulgate Latin. These specific initials in an illuminated manuscript were also called initials. In the present, the word initial commonly refers to the first letter of any word or name, the latter normally capitalized in English usage and is generally that of a first given name or a middle one or ones.
I don't know the name for that, but yeah. So that is a chapter marker, but I like indicators of chapter 1, 2, 3, but maybe that's because I am also a reviewer, and it gives me an indicator of, where I'm fitting into a book. Because also, especially if you give me a contents page with all the chapters. If I give Stephanie May nothing else, she gives me that. Very nice. Do appreciate it. Anyway, not a major issue, just one of those things where I went, I'd have preferred it, but I kind of understand why not, right? And the other one is, so you saw there where she's like calling her cochineal. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I don't know if it's cochineal or cochineal, because I've heard both. The red beetles they use for like food dyes and stuff. I don't know if they use it for dyes for other things, but anyway, there are a lot of names like that. So we have cochineal there are others throughout, and it's always either different words for red and blue, or it is things that are red or blue. Like, I think they call, like, red gets called Shepherd's Delight and Sailor's Warning, things like that, and there are more throughout, but those sorts of things. But one of them, oh yeah, at one point Red just calls her Blue Dabba Dee, and this is a book that is so easy to lose yourself and fall into. You forget that you're reading a book, which is what you want, I think. It's very immersive, but I had never felt less immersed than when I saw Blue Dabba Dee, because this is a book that, while, yes, it's very clear that it is based around Earth, generally speaking, there's something still very otherworldly about it, and obviously there's all the time travel stuff, but there is still something kind of otherworldly about it, and I was right out of it the moment I saw that. I'm just like, that felt like it was a silly joke between the authors, rather than feeling like it made sense to put in. It felt like something that should have been changed to me. But that's me being kind of nitpicky. But I generally don't write notes about nitpicky stuff. I generally go, oh, that's kind of nitpicky. But I still felt the need to write that one in my notes. So, you know, clearly it got in my head when I was reading it. But, you know, these authors, generally speaking, are very intentional with everything. So something like that, it probably did feel right to them. Just not for me. But something I am curious about with them is how their writing process works. I have an idea or a hope of how it works. I love seeing the process, I mean, just of generally with writers, but specifically with books where it is one book, multiple, or not one book, one story, multiple authors. So something like Good Omens, I love watching interviews with Neil Gaiman and with Sir Pratchett about the way they wrote together with that, and I'd be interested to read about this here, but at the same time I'm also kind of enjoying living my imagination and living with my hope, because I don't want to be wrong. Because on the cover, so I've explained how the structure works, and on the cover we have, let me get this the right way round, yeah, so the author's names on the front, we have Elmatar being in blue and Gladstone being in red, and I think it would be interesting to know if that's an intentional thing, not just because those are the, you know, central colours of the book. If, again, making sure I'm getting this, if it was Elmatar writing for blue and Gladstone for red, I think that would be really cool if that's the case. I could look it up, but like I said, I want to live in my hope that I'm right, and sometimes that's okay, because it is something entirely inconsequential. And if I am wrong, I'll, you know, go and buy a cheap ukulele and sing you a good song about it. This is gonna date this so badly, but I cannot tell you how insane it is to me, how much it's just fully living in my fucking head. And I just, Anyway, back to this. So, even though it was a short book, still is, hasn't changed, I read this over a course of a few days because I was really enjoying savouring it, and I knew that this was one of those which I could fall into and then not enjoy as much. I know that might sound a little bit silly to say that I don't enjoy it as much when I'm reading it all in one go, but even if I am massively enjoying something, I get really tired out by it, which is why I generally work with Pomodoro timers and space things out. And now my laptop is screaming at me, didn't ask. So it generally does take me a little bit longer to read books, but it's also a way. It works both ways for me. The Pomodoro allows me to read hard books quicker, because I'm not just trying to read it all in one big lump, and it allows me to space you know, the boring books where I'm just like actively trying to go, oh, it's like, it's fine, it's only 25 minutes at a time. And then with books like this, where I do want to actually savour it, I can space myself out a little bit and not just fall into it and end up with headaches and all that bullshit. But what I'm saying is, over a few days, but I found it really easy to fall back into. And can you blame me when, for example, on day 2, I was greeted with this. London Next, the same day, month, year, but one strand over, is the kind of London other Londons dream of. Sepia-tinted, skies strung with dirigibles, the viciousness of empire acknowledged only as a rosy backdrop glow, redolent of spice and petaled sugar. Mannered as a novel, filthy only where story requires it, all meat pies and monarchy. This is a place Blue loves and hates herself for loving. Like, do you see why this is just so easy for me to dive head first into? And I personally found that this didn't feel purple, because there were certain moments where I thought it might dive into that. It might feel a bit flowery for some people. I do think that. But for me, I really enjoyed it. And also, I'm somebody who sometimes kind of enjoys really purple prose, overly descriptive, but it's 50-50.
Just a quick heads up for anyone who needs it. My tics flare up for the rest of this video. If that's going to cause you any issues, feel free to drop away now. It was lovely to have you stop by.
But I like the way that Thank you. Alright, we're dealing with this for the rest of the fucking video now then. I live here and you don't, so this is my brain, and you have to deal with the tics with me. So it's the sort of description where it doesn't feel like it's overstaying its welcome. But it does feel like a book. I think I just managed to describe this well earlier as well. It feels like a book that is designed for my ADHD brain, because not only is it, you know, one of those where, had I not decided to give myself the Pomodoro type structure, I would easily be able to fall into it. Sorry, when my tics stop, sometimes it feels like my brain's turned off. They might come back again, but it is what it is. Where was I? There. Yeah. The structure, the writing style, all of it just ticks a little... oh, I'm gonna be reflecting really badly on my glasses. I've got this far. Who gives a shit? Yeah, it just scratches a little itch in the neurodivergent brain of mine. It just, the way it's all put together, there's something, I don't think, but I might be wrong. I'm not very good with looking at this stuff, and I'd have to look into it more properly. I think it's an episodic structure. If it's not, it's very akin to, yeah, I would say it's an episodic structure, but I might be wrong there, because I feel like, because it feels like a kind of collection of short stories, but that follow on from each other, which I would tend to say is kind of episodic. And I think that's a sort of thing that I like, because it's something that is easy to take breaks from if you need it. It feels like something that you can easily keep, because the chapters, even like each part in the chapter and the chapters themselves, generally speaking, are not very long, so it's very easy to just trundle along with. This would be very good if you do just want to get back into reading, because you can really take your time with it. You can stop at the end of each part and find it really easy to come back into it, or you can just go ham and read it all at once, which I would have done if I didn't have to look after my brain a little bit, you know?
Using TTS for this next quote because I misread it in a way that changed the meaning a little bit. Red wrote too much too fast. Her pen had a heart inside, and the nib was a wound in a vein. She stained the page with herself.
You see why I just find it so easy to devour a book like this? And I want to make it clear, this book isn't pretty good prose with some like, oh, there's a nice line popped in and out, because sometimes you do get that with books where it feels like they've written lines and they really like that line and they've kind of edited around it to make sure that line can stay in. They are seamless within the prose. They still clearly stick out a little bit. I have noticed them. But there will be other parts that other people notice that fit like this. I mean, obviously, there are now lines that you may notice if you read this after me, because I think that's pretty common to do that if you've heard that line before. But point is, there will be lines that you do that with yourself, right? You can find that stuff yourself. It doesn't feel like I don't know what the written version would be, but it doesn't feel like it's trying to create sound bites where it could, with this style, it could really easily do that. I think it's because there's people in the house and my brain is going stressed because I don't like when there's people in the house. I don't even know if there are, but also, if that is what's going on downstairs and they are fixing the house, why are they coming at fucking 20 to 10? I hope that's not what that is. But also at the same time, I do hope that's what that is, because that hole in the kitchen floor does need fixing, so swings and roundabouts. Anyway. Yeah, so this book feels like the sort of thing that if you're a writer, it's good to look at to see those lines, because I think as a lot of writers, especially fantasy and sci-fi writers, I see a lot of poppy lines that they want to put in. Do you mind? And they want to put like kind of poppy lines in, and this would be a really good book to see how you can put those in more seamlessly, make sure it still sounds like you. And obviously that's doubly so in this case, because you've got to make sure you have the two authors whose styles gel so nicely you cannot tell that there are two writers writing this. There are subtle differences if you're really paying attention, but unless you're at that studying this book kind of deal, you're not really going to be paying that much attention to it. But I do think this is going to be the sort of book where I maybe get my own copy so I can look at it from my own writing type thing, you know? Now, what I will say is I had more notes after this, but the notes about the last quote there we're at the halfway point of the book, and I figured, no, not I figured, I can't read. The notes after this basically fit into two categories. On the one hand, it was spoilers, and on the other hand, it was just a lot of me not writing the plot down because I knew I didn't want to do spoilers. But it was basically, I know that I am about to be emotionally devastated, and to be fair, I was right. So I was often devastated. This is a book that will hit you right in your fucking chest, and you'll love it for it. So I just want to say thank you to Mr. Dickolas. You have provided me with an absolutely wonderful experience with reading, and it's one that I'm not going to get super often. Occasionally when I do blind date with a book, I will just reread the what's on the front. So obviously that's genre, and then but when I do it at the library, it's the genre and then 3 descriptors. And I sometimes don't decide not to read the blurb, or when I've done judging a book by its cover before, which is actually very similar to this. I think it's probably a bit more similar because I've got zero expectation there, which I might do these more often. I love doing stuff like this, new experiences with books, and I am always going to do it with the library because it's taking a risk if I don't, and I haven't got taking risk money. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, don't expect to know when, but I do think that my next review will probably be a trip back to Bad Red Book Club. I am about halfway through Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, and I mean, I'm hoping to get it done soon, but obviously that script is going to be a really long one, so there probably will be something before that. I just found out that Josh Hunt, who did Seraphine's Ghost, has just released a new book, same universe, so I don't think it might have some saucy stuff in it, but I don't think this one is also an erotica, so we will see how that is. That might be the next thing that I do, but I also have some other library books that I've got, and I do want to get Icebreaker finished, mostly because I'm fucking sick of it. Spoiler alert, it's not going great, but yeah, like I say, don't expect to know when that is, so, or don't expect to know whenever I'm releasing videos, because I have no structure anymore, and that actually is making me feel much better about it, because I can just go, yeah, I can upload whenever, and that's fine. But in order to know when I am uploading and what I am uploading, there is a huge fucking bug on my window. Good lord, big boy, big chungus. Anyway, oh, my brain feels like it's turning off again. Jesus. Ooh, love ticks. They make me so happy. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, so, like I was saying, I don't have an upload schedule anymore. I upload whenever I feel like it, whenever I finished a book, which is it's fucking relief, to be honest. So to find out when and what I am uploading next, make sure you subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and if you feel like it, you can even pop this video a little like, because that would make me a happy boy. 1 like equals 1 getting rid of my ticks. That's a joke. I wish it did work like that. And then I would share it to everybody and make them all like it, and then I would never have a tick again. Except like 2 people like these videos, so you know. Not exactly going to get rid of them quicker. Quick, tell all your friends so we can get rid of my ticks by liking it quicker. Quicker, more. Christ, fuck me. Let me know. I need to wrap this up. I'm losing my mind. Let me know if there are any other books that you think would be really good to experience like this. Just go in, know the title, know the author, know fuck all else about it. Just dive head first. Are there any books like that you've experienced like that and think would be really interesting for me to experience like that? Or let me know if you were also influenced by Biggless Dickless into reading this book, and let me know what you thought of it, because I would be super interested. And as always, if there are any books that you go, oh my god, this would be great to see me review, and I'm aware that that is usually just going to be like, I saw another Colleen Hoover book, one of her 50 million fucking published books, and I thought it would be funny, feel free to comment those. Stuff that are Bad Red Book Club type stuff, or stuff that you've seen on TikTok and you go, either that's really good or it's utter wank, and I don't want to have to read it for myself, so I make you do it as my fucking guinea pig. I'm happy to be your little fucking guinea pig, just don't expect me to do anything quickly, because that's how this channel works now. So, after you've subscribed, turn the notification bells on, all of them. Maybe drop me a little like, maybe put a little comment in the comment box. Then I simply hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you are watching this. Take good care of yourselves. Right.